how much, if any, you rely on back issues. Like what kind of, let's just talk in general terms, like how much percentage of your store is devoted to it and how much of your profit would you say is coming from it? You don't have to give specific numbers. Maybe if you're willing to, maybe talk about percentages. I want to know from Joe, because I'm going to guess. I'm going to make a guess first for each one of you. I think Joe never got out of old comics, has always loved back issues, and continues to carry them at your store. But I want to hear it from him. Joe, what do you do?
Here's the deal. When we opened 32 years ago, close to 40% of our sales were in back issues. And so we were a whole lot more balanced between new stuff and old stuff. And now back issues were a lot larger business, but back issues for us are a smaller percentage of the business. We're now in the 10 to 15% range every month. But that's still shifting a fair amount of back issues. And there's definitely lots of opportunity there, but it's like any other piece of the business is that there's a lot of junk out there to go along with the few diamonds that are, stuck in the rough. So it's not a game that I would recommend anybody to get into without having a deeper knowledge of the back issue field. It's not for the faint of heart, but if you know your stuff, like the guys here on the screen, you're going to be okay. And for us, I still love the old stuff, and that excitement I think comes through when I'm talking with people about it. And I couldn't see being a comic shop without doing the old stuff. And okay. To a degree, the way I see back issues right now is the way major publishers see Amazon or Barnes and Noble. It's another sales channel for them. And we need to develop different sales channels for us in order to stay viable and to keep on growing. And hopefully we'll grow again once this COVID thing is behind us.
Yeah, when I bought my store, I thought I pursued what I think of as like a Brian Hibbsian model. Like I had read a lot of Tilting Windmills and a lot of his stuff, and I thought, I want to cater to readers, and collectability is not my thing, and so I don't think that it's right for a store. I feel like that was a mistake on my part.
Well, that's one of those deals where collectability and readership don't necessarily negate one another. Yes. There are collectors who were dyed-in-the-wool readers who love the old stuff and want to keep on reading it. Yes. And so, it's there's crossover between collectors and readers. It's not an either or; it's a both.
Yeah. That was a huge epiphany to me too, as well as the fact that there's a humongous crossover between superhero fans and art comics fans. Like a lot of people like me just like comics, and we don't draw those kind of distinctions. So I want to ask Jim, I want to ask Morty, back issues. I want to guess, because you were kind of like me, you were before me. I'm gonna guess you didn't have back issues, and maybe you rethought it, because like me, towards the end of my tenure, I realized I made a mistake, and I started bringing them back into the store. Is that a similar scenario to you?
I came into the business roughly when you did, with the same sort of feel to it, where these are things to be read, they're things to be consumed, enjoyed. You get your money, you set it aside, and you get to the next thing. I really was against collectability. And to this day, we're still very, very low on back issues. It is definitely something that we're interested in, but everything that we set up was systems to make things efficient, to get as much product in, through, and back out as possible. And
new product,
and to not have to have a specific knowledge base for that particular thing. When I got into the business, you'd walk into a comic shop, the middle 80% of the floor would all be back issues. And that middle 80% would maybe do 20 to 25% of the actual sales. which as a retailer, as somebody who likes statistics and that sort of thing, just bothered me so much. Like, why would you devote so much of your space to something that actually gives you so little return, as opposed to getting that out the door, getting things back? I used to make an example that when Target can't sell a toaster, they don't mark it up another $5 and call it a collectible toaster. They mark it down, they get it out the door, they get the next thing in, and that's what I set my business up to do. 24 years later, we're still around, but back issues certainly seem to have seen a huge growth in the area. But for you, for myself, for Joe, I think for anybody who's a retailer, there's a sweet spot of the best comics in the world. And the best comics in the world came out 5 years before you started your store, and for probably 3 or 4 years after you started your store. And those are the things that you just love, you identify with, you're always going to vibe with. And that's sort of the golden era. For me, Chris Ware and 8-Ball and Fantagraphics and all that stuff, that's sort of the golden era. And so for me, there isn't a nostalgia or a connection to back issues the way that perhaps everybody else here has.
I got into the business a little bit later. I opened my shop at 32 rather than at 11 or 22 or 16 or whatever. So many people got into this business at a very young age. But when Jim talks about the golden age is the 5 years before you open and the 3 years after, mine was 15 years before I opened, going into 5 years after. So it was a much broader time span of stuff that I felt was my stuff.
Right. Regan. I'm sorry. I've never. Is it? Did you go Regan or Reagan?
It's Regan.
Regan, right? Okay. So Regan, tell me your back issue experience in your store, and then we got a question coming from the super chat.
Like you, I was heavily influenced by the people that were saying not to do back issues. But we had started before that, and we were doing back issues. But we actually then quit. So we had been doing back issues for probably 12 years. But they weren't great revenue for us. And we quit back issues because those were uncool, and they were catering to collectors, and we wanted to be a bookstore, So we quit doing the back issues, and we started about 7 years ago again. It's a good revenue stream, about 10% of sales in both of our stores. It's about the similar 10% of sales. It's the thing I enjoy the most, though. Like, if you tell me today, like, my job is to go in and handle the back issues and play with the back issues and price them, like, I actually just said it was playing. So it's like, it's the funnest job in the world, the back issue part of the business, in my opinion. I don't know why we ever quit it, really. Besides, I wanted to be cool and accepted by the comic retail community. As I've gotten older, I realized making money is more important than being cool and accepted. So yeah, go figure.
What do you think?
The one thing, yeah, go figure. So, but the best comics ever thing, like your conversation just the other day with Dan Fraga and the 1989 thing, and I was thinking 1989 also had a lot of junk. Like, that's in our dollar bins, or not even that. We don't even put them out because it's not even worth putting out. And so, like, we remember the good ones. And, like, you can come into the store right now, and I can give you 10 great books that are new from the last few months. And so there's still great books being made. And so it's not just 1989. Every era has great books. And so
you're right. And I would even go so far as to say that, the comics are like anything else. There's a state of the art, right? And everything that came before informed what's coming now. And we're getting some of the best comics ever, as well as a bunch of stuff that's not as great. So, like, it's always going to be a mixed bag.